So I went out there the first day and met some guys, and that's where I got introduced to drugs. The first time I drank, I tried to drink straight bourbon. I was probably 13, and I spit it out. It was horrible. The first time I got drunk, I was 15. But I did partake. And when I turned 21, and I could just go to the store and buy it, I never had a fake ID. But once I turned 21, I drank every day. She finally did. This went on for a couple of years. It was really difficult.
How did that impact you?
It was crazy. I was working. I never knew what I was going to come home to. I had 2 younger kids. And I got...
And you were drinking?
And I was drinking. So the first time I got drunk, I almost died.
Green lights and blue skies are on their way. Yeah, they're on their way.
Welcome to Crosstalk, the #1 recovery podcast on the face of the universe. We've polled every human being on the earth, and that's what we've been told. We are the best. So I hope you think that we are as well. We're coming to you today from South Florida, and I want to welcome you. We're a podcast that really is trying to focus on bringing recovery to everybody, to find out there is a way to live free of alcohol and drugs, free from addiction, without having that elephant, that animal, that terrible suffering on your back every day, day in and day out, which I had for many years and don't have today. I want you to do a few things for me. I want you to like us, hit that button, smack the shit out of that like button so we know, and then the notifications, we want you to get the notification button also so that when we post something, you'll be able to find out that we're posting something. It's a bell. And also follow us and share our videos with other people if you like them. People who need to hear the messages that you're hearing on Crosstalk, or people who just are in recovery and would like to hear more to sustain their recovery and keep them going in the right direction. Your comments are welcome. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us what you like about today's video. Tell us what you think you want more of as well. We'd love to hear from you. And today we have a dear friend of mine. We actually did an interview of my buddy Alan about a month or so ago, and I accidentally pressed the mute button on his microphone, and so we didn't hear him. I heard him, and it was terrific, but no one else could hear him, so we decided to do it again. So Alan, welcome to our podcast. Welcome to Crosstalk.
Thanks, Corey. I appreciate you upping the pay for the second time. I really appreciate that.
Well, we had meetings, and we decided, what the hell?
Well, we got our agents together. It all worked out fine in the end.
Exactly. Yeah. That's all we had to do. A little pull, a little push, and we ended up at the right place.
Exactly.
Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
So you know already how this goes, and I'm going to let you just run with it and tell us how life started for Alan S., and we'll just go back and forth and do what we do here.
Super good. I am Alan S. My sobriety date, September 5th, 2017. I got a sponsor who's got a sponsor, and my life is good. So I always like to start off with that, to qualify myself, as they say. I am 68 years old. I got sober when I was 62. So I had a long drinking career. I had a pretty normal upbringing. I was born in Monroe, Louisiana, lived there for 15 years. My dad worked, my mom was a homemaker. My parents drank, when my dad came home from work, it was cocktail hour. And so drinking was just, part of growing up. That was what they did. We had a very tight-knit group of families that got together regularly, went on vacation together, and parents used to get pretty lit up,
Do you have siblings?
I have one brother who's older, and He's a civilian, although he does like his beer, but he never went the direction I did. So I grew up around drinking. It was just part of life, you know. Life was very simple. My very idyllic childhood in a town of 60,000 people in Louisiana, and then after my freshman year in high school, we moved to Memphis. My dad changed jobs, so I spent 1 year there, and then we moved again. He changed jobs again, and I ended up in Little Rock, Arkansas. So I went to 3 high schools in 4 years, and that was the first real blip in my life that I remember that was a tester, you know. It was really hard. The first move was hard, and the second move, I just said, I'm not going through the first move again. And so I became very aggressive and outgoing to make friends, which wasn't that hard for me.
What does it mean you didn't want to go through the second move again?
The first year, when you grow up in the same town your whole life and you move, you're like lost. You've never had to make friends, right? And you go into this big high school. My poor brother, it was between his junior and senior years.
So you went to Memphis, and that was the hardest thing.
It was a horrible year.
Right.
Yeah, I just didn't really. She got thrown into a high school. I didn't play sports. I quit growing. You and I are the basketball team, as I like to call us, you know.
You know, we're sitting. No one knows.
Short guys. Yeah, it's okay. But it was just hard. So when I moved to Little Rock, I said, I'm just going to go out and make friends. I was a cigarette smoker, and I'm aging myself, but we had a smoking area at school. So I went out there the first day and met some guys, and that's where I got introduced to drugs.
In Memphis,
in Little Rock, when I moved to Little Rock.
The second move.
Just before junior year of high school, everybody started smoking pot. I had stolen a drink here or there, but the first time I drank, I tried to drink straight bourbon. I was probably 13, and I spit it out. It was horrible. The first time I got drunk, I was 15, and my dad was in the lumber business, and there'd been a railroad derailment. So there was all this beer and actually champagne malt liquor that got damaged, so they write it all off. So whenever a train wrecked, they'd just drop stuff by our house because he was a big customer. And that's the first time I got drunk. I'd just gotten my driver's license, and I remember having a bunch of champagne malt liquor, and I went out driving. And I'll never forget, I had a stereo blasting in a Volkswagen Beetle, 1962 Volkswagen Beetle, and I went flying over a railroad track, and I heard a big and I looked in my rearview mirror, and there was a train going by. So the first time I got drunk, I almost died. But it was exhilarating. I was feeling great. I made it, and it didn't hit me until literally a few months ago. That was really the first time I endangered myself drinking. And it was the second time I'd ever drank.
First, you had been driving was something that you did
at 15, yeah.
So you were used to driving. You just weren't used to driving
I'd never done it while drinking.
Right.
I just didn't sneak booze. I tried it once, and that was the second time I'd ever drank. My dad would give me a sip of his beer, but it just didn't do anything for me.
So did it light the fuse for you?
Didn't light the fuse for me.
No,
it didn't.
But the single malt was it?
It was called. You were from the north. This is malt liquor, champagne malt liquor. It's like Colt 45. You ever hear?
Yeah. They used to have commercials with the.
It's kind of a blue collar strong beer. Yeah.
Wasn't the Houston Astros called the Colt 45s at the beginning? Was that the...
They were, but that was over the Colt 45 handgun.
Oh, okay.
Not the drink.
Oh, you see, I'm from New York. I don't...
Houston, my mom was from Houston, so,
So did the Colt 45 beer or
malt liquor,
was that named after the gun or vice versa?
I have no idea.
What kind of an interview is this? Yeah, I'm trying to find out information from you.
Well, I've just never delved into it. If you want me to pull my phone out and Google it, we can get there.
No, I don't think it is.
I guess my point is, I wasn't one of those guys that the first time they tasted alcohol were in love with it.
Right.
the second time I tasted it, I got drunk, but I didn't throw up. I didn't get that drunk. I had this adventure. And then when I moved to Arkansas, I started smoking pot. And that was real easy to get. It was much easier to get drugs than alcohol at 17 years old. And but when I turned 18, my parents let me start drinking at home. You know, that was the legal age. I think I was right in the period where it was transitioning from 18 to 19 to 20 to 21. So at 18, I was a senior in high school. I'd come home and, you know, have a bourbon and ginger ale with my parents. It was just that normal. And pretty much once, you know, and then I went to college at the University of Arkansas, and of course we drank a lot. We did a lot of drugs. I did it for fun, you know. It was everybody did. I wasn't a blackout drinker in college, you know. But I liked it. I loved the feeling it produced.
Was it an everyday thing?
No, well, not liquor because it was too hard to get. It was a hassle. But we smoked pot every day, yeah. And on the weekends we'd drink. Sometimes we'd drink during the week, but it wasn't, we'd have a keg, you know. It was more a matter of availability. It wasn't a quest for me. I would spend some time putting a deal together to get some pot or other drugs.
Right. Everybody had a bong.
Everybody had a bong. So I never felt like alcohol was driving my life in college. But I did partake. And when I turned 21 and I could just go to the store and buy it, I never had a fake ID. But once I turned 21, I drank every day. Not to extinction, just cocktails after work. You know, I got out of college. That's what we did, you know.
Right.
And I did that for a long time. I got married right out of college.
How old were you?
23.
Okay. And you're in Arkansas.
Graduated from Arkansas, got married, and then I went to work for Phillips Petroleum in Oklahoma. And we spent 2 years there, and then we got moved up to New Jersey. And
wow, what a change.
It was great. Yeah, we were 25 years old, living in northern New Jersey. I was a salesman, selling chemicals, but we were going into Manhattan to party, man.
Sure.
And that started a 6-year fun run. I mean, my wife got a job. We both worked. We had money. We had a house, and we had a ball. I mean, a couple of kids from the South. Weekends were going into New York City. That was a lot of fun. We made a lot of friends there. We had a house. Most of our friends didn't, so we were the party house. And yeah, consumption was high.
Any problems during that time, or was it just fun?
Just fun. I mean,
Party hardy, New York City.
party, work. We didn't have any kids, and it was fun. You know, I never missed a day of work. I had a few hangovers, but I was traveling all the time. I mean, it just didn't. It never grabbed me, you know. I believe everybody has their own curve if they're an alcoholic. You know, some people drink for 2 years and they've hit their bottom. I just had a different curve. It took me a long time,
Right.
which we'll get to, but you eventually get there, you know. So that was great. We spent 6 years there, and then they transferred me back to Oklahoma, and we were miserable there. We hated it, especially my wife.
Did you hate it when you were there at the beginning, or
No, because I didn't know any better.
So now that you
6 years in North Jersey, New York area, you go back to Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Yeah, we hated it there.
Right.
It's very company town, 35,000 people, very provincial. You know, you go from going to the village to party to Tulsa. It's not quite the same thing.
Got it.
But we stayed there for 3 more years, and then I quit my job and I took a job trading. I was in the oil business, and I started interacting with the trading community of the world, and they started offering me jobs, so I took one. I never wanted to work for a big company. I wanted to work somewhere where I spent all my time in a market and got paid for what I produced. I was very entrepreneurial and pretty fun. I was okay with risk.
So when you left your job in Oklahoma, did you move to a different city?
Moved to Connecticut.
Okay. So how old are you now? About 30?
I was 34.
34. Okay. So you're 34. You're married in Connecticut now, and you're trading.
And I'm trading oil. Yeah.
Okay, that's a big change.
Huge change. And I actually joined. I had 2 job offers in Connecticut. I took one that was it was really a startup. It was some guys that had started up an old refinery in Puerto Rico with a chemical plant. It's a business I knew from what I was doing before. And I worked there, and I showed up, and about the second week, I figured out that this place was not working. The guy ended up going to prison for $200 million of fraud. He was a terrible trader, and they were losing money. So I stayed there 10 months, and then I escaped and went to the company that I had offered me a job, and then I stayed there for 19 years. So that was a really scary year. Drinking escalated for both me and my wife
because of the fraud and the company problems?
It was just a horrible place to work. I'd given up 11 years, stability, great career, taken this leap. I had picked box A or B. I chose B, and it turned out to be the wrong choice. And you felt trapped. And it was just really tense. We tried to make it work. I was the first guy to resign.
So the drinking escalated.
We drank so much, it kind of became a painkiller that year. Mm-hmm. I would say that both of us stepped it up a notch. My wife, I was working a lot and drinking a lot with my colleagues. She was at home by herself, didn't know anybody, because she's also an alcoholic, And so we both stepped it up that year.
So you're in Connecticut. You're there about 10 months. You decided to tender your resignation, a crazy situation. You go to the original job offer that you didn't take.
Yeah, it was in Connecticut.
Right, and that was a good environment. Did your drinking de-escalate because you were in a good situation?
A little bit, but not really.
Uh-huh.
It was oil trading is it's kind of no rules, party hard, work hard, party hard atmosphere. But it was fun. I started having fun again. I hadn't had fun in Connecticut going back, and I hadn't had fun that first job. So I just really got into it. So my focus was pretty much on working. My wife at the time was, kind of lost. It was hard for her to keep a career moving around all the time. And so at that point, we had decided to have children. So it took 3 years we had to go through fertility treatments. So we had Patrick in 1992. And I was working like a dog. And right while she was pregnant, my boss said, "You need to move to London." And I was like, cool.
So you're 37.
I'm 37.
You're 37.
I'm like, great, but my wife doesn't want it. And he goes, just talk to her. So I talked to her. She goes, absolutely not. I'm pregnant. I don't want to move to London. We just bought a house. I'm finally happy. And I said, well, we're going to move to London. Because that's where my opportunity was. And so she stayed in Connecticut and finished her pregnancy and had the baby. I commuted New York to London every week.
How does that look?
It's exhausting. I did that for 6 months.
So you left Sunday, came back Thursday?
I left Sunday, came back Friday.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'd leave. We'd have lunch at 2. I'd go to Kennedy Airport, take the 6:30, land at 6:30, be in the office, go take a shower, be in the office at 8, and then work till 4:30 on Friday. catch the 7:30 back. Yeah.
Between the time change and the travel.
I did it, but it was insane.
Now, I'm curious. I have similar experience with drugs and alcohol. You more alcohol than drugs. Me, probably more drugs than alcohol. But when you're off on your own working in London, there's nobody really minding the store, so to speak. You're not
Right.
coming home to anybody. Was it more partying in London, or was it about because of work you just couldn't?
I didn't drink during the day. And in London, London's pub culture. So you'd work, and then at 6, you wander down to the local, right? Have a few pints, grab a dinner. But I wasn't getting blackout drunk. I was drinking after work. Everybody did. You got a lot of your internal work was done in the pub. It was great. You know, you'd get your shipping guys and risk management and the traders, and you'd kind of have a few pints, and I loved it. I loved the whole style of work in London. But yes,
also the work
Corey,
you were doing.
make no mistake, I drank every day from 21, unless I was sick. But I wasn't. I didn't feel abusive at that point in time, and the work was fascinating.
And you were functioning well. You were doing a good job.
I was doing a great job. London's, we moved physical ships around the world. So sitting in London, Greenwich Mean Time, you overlap every working day in the world. You come in the morning, and the Far East is back from lunch. You go to lunch, you come back, America's come in. So it was a long day. I mean, you could productively work 16, 17 hours a day with breaks, So, yeah, I loved it.
2 years there?
4 years.
4 years.
We went for 2, ended up staying 4.
So
And-
was she in Connecticut the whole time?
No. After the baby was born, she moved to London.
Okay.
So I spent 6 months there commuting, and we decided to have another kid. Again, it took us almost 3 years. So at the end of 4 years, we had Chris, our second, and she said, "All right, I'm done. The kids and I are moving back to Connecticut. If you'd like to join us, you're more than welcome to." And so I said, "Yeah, let's get back." So it was professionally, it was an awesome 4 years. We made a lot of good friends there.
Chris was born in England.
Chris was born in England, yeah.
And then
Humana Hospital, St. John Wood, right down the street from Abbey Road, right around the corner, yeah.
And Patrick was probably 3 or 4 by the time
Patrick
you moved back.
was 4 when we moved back.
Got it.
Almost 4. Yeah, 3. Patrick, we moved back in December of 95, and Patrick was 4 in March of 96.
So you're back in Connecticut now.
Back in Connecticut, 2 kids, working. Yeah, life was good. I traveled a lot. We moved back in. We kept our house, so we moved right back into a neighborhood. It was a beach community on Long Island Sound, and it was a definite, just a big vodka consumption neighborhood. Everybody went to the beach at night and had cocktails, and yeah, there was a lot of drinking.
They require you to drink vodka in that neighborhood?
You could drink other things, but it was predominantly vodka.
I got it.
I had 9 neighbors who claimed to have introduced Tito's to Rowayton, Connecticut, But, yeah, so we got back, and we both kept drinking, We drank every day, and I worked a lot, and Kathy, raised kids, very active in the school, played tennis, did all that. She was a housewife. Yeah, so this went on for a few years, and then she started really hitting the heavy alcoholic drinking. Late 2000. Mm-hmm. And so she, maybe 98, but she actually, she was diagnosed, anyway, I won't go into that, but she started day drinking, and it became very noticeable to me.
She got help?
She She finally did. This went on for a couple of years. It was really difficult.
How did that impact you?
It was crazy. I was working. I never knew what I was going to come home to. I had two younger kids. And I got...
And you were drinking.
And I was drinking. I got angry. And I was drinking, yeah. And I'd come home, and some days I would have to make dinner, and then I'd get the kids to bed. And then I would have to talk to Singapore every night at 10 o'clock. And about 10:30, I would sit down and have 4 or 5 drinks just because I earned it. I deserved it, just to take the stress off, you know. And my drinking escalated as well. And we went through 8 or 9 years of that. She started going to rehab, 30 days here, 60 days there, 100 days here. And I was drinking the whole time. And it was just brutal.
Must have had a big impact on the kids as well.
Yeah, two beautiful kids having 2 alcoholic parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a good luck of the draw there. I was still highly functioning as an alcoholic. Some might disagree, but my kids have told me that during that period of time, it wasn't my drinking that bothered me, it was my volatility and the change in moods. One day it's happy, blow off homework, let's go to Red Lobster. Next day, what do you mean you made a B on that test? You know, just drinking made me erratic. Erratic in my moods, erratic in my tone of voice, erratic in anger. I was an angry guy, and I was always kind of a aggressive guy, but I became an angry guy. My nickname in the office was the Screamer. You know, a lot of stress. We all sat together on long trading benches, and you know, there were some phones smashed and things like that. I'm not proud of it, but that's kind of the way it was.
You know, I've played golf with you, and I've never seen you throw clubs or do any of that stuff. I'm curious, when you were playing golf during that period of time, did golf course behavior match what was going on a trading desk?
No.
So you were always a civil
No. Well, no,
gentleman.
I was drinking on the golf course.
But you were a gentleman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty much. But I remember when I was like 16, my dad taught me to play golf. We were playing golf one day, and I hit a shot, and I threw a club. And he said, go pick that up and get out of here. And you can come back to the golf course when you learn to control your temper. And I didn't play golf for like 3 years. But I worked 7 days a week in my last 2 years of high school. I had a girlfriend. I mean, I was busy. I didn't have time for golf.
Right.
But I always remember my dad taught me about etiquette, and I've never admired people that throw clubs. It's a bad look.
Yeah, it's a real
It's
tell.
disrespectful to the people you're playing with. But I did plenty of other stupid, angry things in my life, believe me. So, you know, my drinking's escalated. Kathy's has really escalated. She went to detox 8 times, 9 times, 6 rehabs. Then I was of absolutely no support, in the sense of I should have quit drinking if I really could.
Did you ever try?
I'd never tried.
No reason to?
Well, there was reasons to. I didn't want to.
But you were functioning at work.
I was highly functioning, but highly selfish. You know, alcoholics are selfish people. You know, if you read the book, there's a lot of talk about ego and self in there. And the more I drank, the less I thought about other people, and the more I thought about myself. And I can see this now, but I couldn't see it at the time. Why shouldn't I drink? I like to drink. I'm not going to rehab. I'm taking care of 2 kids. I'm working. I'm making good money. I'm doing this. Why should I drink? Well, the answer is because you need to help somebody. But I'm an alcoholic, Corey. I would slow down, but I was, it was getting a hold of me. Alcohol, and this was my experience, is you get sick spiritually, then mentally, then physically, and you recover in the opposite sequence. I wasn't having the shakes in the morning. I wasn't having DTs. I wasn't sweating. I thought I was handling it fine. Now, was I starting to black out on the weekends? Yeah. But, so I was of no help, and we decided that we just couldn't live together. It didn't work. She couldn't stay sober. She couldn't get sober with me drinking.
Where are we now? About 2010-ish?
2005.
2005, okay.
2005. So we decided to get a divorce, and we got divorced in 2006. And I bought a house one beach association over. I mean, the kids could literally walk back and forth. And we co-parented, and it was amiable. And I actually, the only time I ever quit drinking was when I moved into my little house on the beach I bought. I was going to show everybody that I could quit drinking. And I quit. And somehow I told myself it was 6 months at the time. My guess is it was less than 6 weeks, and it might have been 6 days. I don't really know. But it wasn't 6 months. And I maybe I made it a week. Maybe I made it 6 weeks. And I go, I can do this. Why shouldn't I drink? So I just started drinking. And when you start drinking, you're right back to, you come home from work, you have 4 cocktails, a bottle of wine, and then another cocktail after, That was my MO. So I started drinking again. And 2007, 2008, I had trained I was thinking about leaving I was worn out. I'd been trading for 17 years, and the company was going to IPO, and I was going to leave after that. And then I'd hired and trained my replacement, which was something you had to do. Training for 4 years. Book was in great shape. And then the Great Recession hit, and that delayed the IPO. So in December of '08, I retired from the company. It was a privately held company, Swiss-based. That was the only way I could get my money out. And I didn't want to wait. I was just worn out. I didn't want to wait for the IPO. So I found myself, I retired. I walked out on the 21st of December. I grabbed the kids and my ex-wife, and on the 22nd we flew to Australia for 2.5 weeks. And bucket list trip,
2000
and New Year's Eve 2008. Rock Key, fireworks in Sydney Harbor, Great Barrier Reef. The kids like to dive. Kathy liked to dive. I'd blow my ears out on too many airplanes. I couldn't dive, but and then I found myself with nothing to do in January of 2009.
And what did that do to your days? How did your behavior change?
The first year was okay. I just relaxed. When you're trading, you have a position 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I'd done that for 22 years. You got calls every time you're on vacation. Christmas Day, you got ships, there's problems. I was just worn out. So I could just lay on the couch and take a nap. I mean, it was really a year. I played a lot of golf in the summer, did some trips. I just kind of unwound. And then I started getting bored after the first year. And I did a lot of different things. I networked. I learned to invest in real estate. I met a bunch of tech guys. I kind of built a network, and it was fun. I traveled around, met people, and had a really good time with it. But mostly I was bored, and my drinking just started escalating because you go to lunch now with somebody and you go, well, we might as well have a cocktail. I got nothing. Don't have to go back to the office. And it just started ramping up, you know.
You ever have any experience with a rehab or any programs prior to that time?
Yeah, we'll get there.
Okay.
I need to speed up on that.
No,
so anyway,
no,
I went through this period of time, and my drinking got worse and worse and worse. And in 2000, let's see, 2016, my dad died, and I was bad at that point, and I just gave up. You know, I was drinking pretty much all day at that point, and I just lost it. I just didn't care anymore.
How did his death impact you?
I spent a lot of time with him and his my stepmother in Savannah, Georgia. How did it impact me? It was like he was my hero. You know, I mean, I can go through the I talked about recovering. You lose your spiritual. I mean, I had a lot of moral decay through all of this. I haven't gone into it, but I did a lot of things that my dad would not have been proud of, not the things he taught me to do. And I just kind of gave up. But it was the alcohol. He lived a good life. He lived the life he wanted. He was 87.
Were you in touch with him all the time?
I saw him. I saw him every 2 months. I would go there. They'd come up here. My stepmother. I was very close. Stayed very close with her till she died.
So in 2016, his death left a real vacancy.
I just gave up. It's like I didn't know. I didn't have anything. I just didn't care. I didn't want to die. I didn't want to live. And I just started drinking. So I just drank, passed out. You know, it was. My kids were. Patrick had lived with me for a while. He had moved out, moved in with his girlfriend. My kids were giving me a hard time. It's funny because I had a spouse who was an alcoholic. I had been lied to a lot, and so I decided that as an alcoholic, which I knew I was not going to lie. I was going to be the honest alcoholic. This is how crazy the thinking gets. And so I never hid it from my kids. And they were just fed up with me. And it all went on for 13 months. I just sat in the house and drank. I would go to an Irish pub at 11:30, have cocktails, but I always left at 2:30 so I could get home before school let out. And then I just stayed at home and drank. I never went out. And that went on for 13 months. And
kids are still in high school?
No, Patrick's out of college. Chris is at this point, Chris had just gone to college.
So what does school at 2:30 have to do with it? It was just...
That's so I didn't run over kids coming out of the local schools as I'm driving home from the bar.
I'm glad.
Sorry, I should have clarified that. That was my idea of being a responsible citizen.
Interesting.
Crazy, huh?
See, I thought they were left back year after year after year because the kids were coming home from school.
I kind of got sidetracked. No, that was my thinking.
Interesting. So that was a safety measure for the children of the
children of Darien, Connecticut, yeah. And the moms.
Boy, that actually makes some sense. In all this craziness, it makes some sense.
Yeah. Crazy, but crazy. So anyway, it got to the point that I was physically addicted. I mean, I couldn't get out of bed without drinking. I couldn't, wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, throw up, yellow bile, sweat, shake. I didn't eat. I mean, I probably weighed 145 pounds at that point. I was living on protein shakes that are, just if I could choke it down. I would actually go to a Doc in the Box and get some pills so I could detox myself for a couple of days so I could get a meal in me.
Wow.
I was always thinking.
I never heard this before.
Yeah. Oh, it was bad. It was bad. I had 3 one-car accidents in my last 6 months of drinking within 150 feet of my house. Hit a snowbank and 2 curbs.
Well, that could happen to anybody.
It never happened to me before.
So one car accident is just for everybody that.
Just so my neighbors could see me drive up my steeply pitched driveway on a rim because I hit the curb on the, around the corner. Oh, yeah.
You had a good relationship with the body shop.
Yes, because you don't have insurance if you report that. I was paying for it out of my pocket. Grant's Auto Body in Darien, I can give it a really high reckoning. I know Mr. Grant very well. And then at the end, I had my last night of drinking. I did my normal routine, went to the Irish pub, came home, drank, passed out, and I know I went upstairs with a cocktail to go to bed. I know I took an Ambien. I probably took a couple of hits on a one-hitter.
2017?
This is 2017. This is September the 4th. And I woke up the next morning and I was in bed. It looked like a MASH unit in Korean War. It was just covered with blood. I didn't have my glasses, so I get up and I get my spare glasses out and I look, and the fireplace, there's a fireplace in my bedroom. The tools are on the floor. There's blood everywhere. I go look in the mirror and my chin is cut open all the way down to the bone. And I start piecing it together, and my knees and my shins are just destroyed. There's no skin on them. And I started looking, and what I did was I fell on the hearth of the fireplace, hit my chin on the fireplace stools, standing there, cut that open. And then I start walking around, and I find my glasses broken on the stairs. And it was like a CSI investigation I did that morning, and I could see blood trail down to the bar downstairs, blood trail back up, blood trail down. Because I never kept a bottle in bed. I was not that bad an alcoholic. So I would be blackout drunk walking up and down a set of 12 curving stairs that were slick as ice. And that was it, man. And you talk about things happen for a reason. I had a doctor's appointment at 9:30 that morning already, just for a checkup. So I get in my car and I drive to see my doctor, and I walk in. I kind of cleaned up, but I was a mess.
Your bone was exposed.
My bone was exposed, yeah. I walk in and he looks at me and goes, "Holy shit." He goes, "What happened?" And I go, "Well, this is what." He goes, "Okay, just a minute." He disappears. He comes back. He goes, "Drive 5 buildings down. Go see this plastic surgeon. He's going to sew you up." I went down there and he sewed me up. I was still drunk. I vaguely, I remember it, but vaguely. He put 38 stitches in my chin. And
did it occur to you to go to the hospital? Or you didn't, because you're going to the doctor, it didn't matter?
Well, you're better off with a plastic surgeon sewing you up than going to the emergency room.
Well, I'm not sure that crossed your mind at the time.
That's what my doctor told me to do.
Right, but
was I then going to go? No, I went home.
You went to sleep after all that
happened. And then I
happened.
went to sleep. I slept for like 24 hours. And I woke up and I called my doctor and I said, "I need to come talk to you." Because that night before, my son Patrick was coming over for dinner. And I met him at the door and he took one look at me and I told him what had happened. And he said, I'm not going to be the one to find you dead at the bottom of the stairs. I'll leave that for your housekeeper. He goes, "I love you, Dad. When you get sober, give me a call." And he turned around and left. And I went to bed and I called my doctor and I went and saw him and I said, help me. I got a detox, but I don't want to go to a detox because,
Well,
why would I want to go to a detox? Because I've got this under control, right?
You, of all people, had a detox.
Absolutely. I had it nailed. And he said, okay. And he gave me, whatever it is, lithium. I can't remember the generic name. It's a benzenoid that they use in detox. I'd learned that from watching my wife, so I used to detox myself before I'd go get blood tests and stuff. But so I for a week, 6 days, I detoxed myself at home. Never took a drink. It's a total fog, but I took 30 milligrams 5 times. I just tapered myself down. And after a couple of 3 days, I started realizing what was going on. And I knew I had to stop drinking. I was so lucky to be alive. My son had walked out of my life. That meant my daughter had walked out of my life as well, because those two were united on this front, dealing with alcoholic parents, as they should have been. And I knew a guy to call, a guy that belonged to my golf club that was sober. And I knew he'd be waiting for my call, because I'd had some friends say, if you ever decide to do something about your drinking, you should call John. And I picked up that phone and dialed his number for 2 days, and I just couldn't hit send or call, but I did. And that's the start of my journey. And I called him, and he said, meet me at the Sherwood Diner at 5:30. I said, okay. So I got there at 5, and I'm just standing there in the parking lot waiting for him, and he pulls in, and he looks at me, and he goes, you're here. And I go, yeah, why wouldn't I be? He goes, most people that call me don't show up. And we went in, and there was another friend sitting at the table, another guy from our golf club. And I go, wow, you too? And I said, John, why didn't you tell me? He goes, I wasn't sure you were going to show up. You don't break anonymity. And we talked. They gave me a big book, which I still have. It was September the 13th, so it was 8 days after I fell in the fireplace. And we left there and went to my first AA meeting. And when it was over, he said, this is real simple, Alan. Don't drink, go to meetings, quit talking and listen. Just see what we do. It's a simple program. And then he says, I'll see you tomorrow morning at 7:30 at Christ Holy Trinity Church. And he goes, oh, one more thing. He goes, the not drinking part's really important. He goes, if you think you want to drink, you got to call me. Because if you call me after you drink, I can't help you. And that was it. And I went home. And the next morning, I was at Christ Holy Trinity Church. And he said, okay, if you want me to work with you, you got to go see a drug and alcohol counselor, PhD psychologist in Westport. I said, okay. I said, will he see me? He goes, I've already talked to him. Just call him. So I saw this guy 2 times the first week, and then the next week I went to see him, and he says, would you consider rehab? And I said, I'd love rehab. And so I came down to Florida and went to Karen. It was a 60-day program. I signed up for 30. And after 2 weeks, she goes, you need 60. I go, I'm all in, man. And went through that, 60 days. Then I stayed. I rented an apartment in Boca, and I went to 8 weeks of IOP. I was afraid to leave rehab. I had found this physical. I had been relieved of the physical obsession and the cravings were gone, and I didn't ever want to go back there, Corey. I hadn't felt this good in 30 years, and I know myself. When I quit smoking, I never took another drag on a cigarette. So if I took one puff, I know I'd be smoking a pack a day within 2 days. It's just me. And so I stayed in Florida, and I loved it down here. It's a great recovery community. I did 10 to 12 AA meetings a week. I had a sponsor. We started reading the book, and I really dug it. It was like a light had gone off for me. And so I decided to move to Florida. I didn't feel safe going back to Connecticut long term. I went back that summer, and I sold my house. I sold my boat. It was white knuckle summer. I was an angry guy. I was selling my house at the bottom of the market. I had a problem with everybody. The only thing I did right was I didn't drink. And I came back to Florida, bought a condo in the same building as my sponsor, my halfway condo, and just started working, man. I went to AA meetings every day. I had a home group. We read the book, started working on the steps, and my life got better, you know?
You know, it's a lot of people have words and they tell people what to do, but in their own lives, you know, it's all over the place. But you're one of those people who you know what to say, but also in your own life, you do it. You get involved. You jump in. You're involved in the recovery community through Karen. You're in the recovery community through Crossroads and the AA community here. Your hand is always out to help somebody else. I know I don't want to embarrass you when I say this, but you pick people up in the wee hours of the morning so they get to meetings on time when they're in treatment. People that are in treatment. I remember when I was at Karen, which is how we know each other. When I was at Karen, I would love when alumni came back and watched the basketball games or football games. We'd have a nice room where the games were playing. People were okay. They were functioning. They were working. Their relationships were firing on cylinders. Their relationships with their kids were restored, and here they came back in, and you do that, and you show up for everybody else. And I think that's why you sound the way you do, which is exactly the way one should want to sound after going through this, to be balanced. That Angry Alan, I don't know where that Angry Alan is, but I haven't seen Angry Alan in a long time.
He's quieter than he used to be. A couple of things I kind of, I could talk for hours, but my mom was an alcoholic. She died of alcoholism and smoking in her early 60s, which was self-inflicted. My wife's an alcoholic. I used to go to family weeks, and I had all the information about alcoholism one could ever have. I was at the best family weeks. I was at Karen. I was at TRC in Atlanta. And the first time I went to the Karen in Pennsylvania to family week, when I was leaving, the counselor goes, hey, Alan. He goes, come here. He goes, I don't know what you are, but at a minimum, you're the most codependent human being I've ever met in my life. And he gave me a brochure. He said, you need to go to this seminar we do, 5 days on codependency.
Breakthrough.
And I went as an active alcoholic, which is a real waste of money because you don't get anything out of it. But the most interesting thing, there was a guy there that had been a former New York City police detective. And we got there late afternoon, we had dinner. The next morning, we're the first two people down for breakfast. And he looks at me and he goes, you might as well go ahead and tell everybody you're an alcoholic. I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic. He goes, of course you're an alcoholic. I can just look at you. So it's you talk about the lack of control. I knew what I was for a decade, maybe more. In my response, I remember driving back from that family going, someday I may have to watch my drinking. That's what I got out of it, delusional. So I knew all this was coming. And I kind of made a subconscious yet conscious decision. I was going to let it play out. But once I stopped, it had to be it. Because I had watched the pain of relapse and how it's worse every time. In my own house. And I just said, I don't want to go there. So when I give it up, I'm giving it up. I'm all in. And it's important to be all in when you go to rehab, to get out of everything out of it you can, and to walk out of there with a program, because we need help. Alcoholism it's undefeated. All we do is buy time. You're sober a day at a time.
There's a lady in Hollywood, Florida that says, I wake up every day with untreated alcoholism. And you've heard that before. But
I have.
And you know, it means that if we don't take care of ourselves each day, we don't do what we need to do to remind ourselves what yesterday was like, tomorrow isn't going to be very good.
I agree. So, I play a lot of golf. People go, what do you do the rest of the time?
Hold on with the golf. Just wait with the golf. I want to know, how's your relationship with your kids?
It's great.
What does it look like?
So I, Karen, they have a very good family program. So my family therapist was calling them each day, once a week. And Patrick actually came down for 2 days while I was in treatment, and they sit in groups. And he was pretty all in. He was excited. Chris, not so much. Chris was younger, had been through the mill with her mother and me, and she just was like, it took 3 years for her to trust me. Not 3 years to talk to me, but John always told me that listen, your kids are watching you as you get in early sobriety. They're watching you. They're looking for, as a guy in my home group says, they're looking for evidence that this is real, right? And I tell my sponsees, I go, it's not like, most of the time your family, it's not that they don't love you, you've just worn them out.
Randall used to say, one of our buddies used to say, consistency over time equals trust.
Yeah.
So it took a long time to get where we got, but in order to rebuild the trust, it takes some time and some consistent behavior. They want to know that this is real.
Yeah, during COVID, Chris came and stayed with me for 8 months. And she saw me do my daily AA, and she met my friends. We had some gatherings at my house, and you'd have, 8 guys who were cooking some burgers and shooting the shit, and she would just sit there and listen to these sober men talk about life and sports. And finally, after about 3 years, she said, Dad, I'm really happy to know I have a sober parent. And that was probably the best thing she ever said to me. And our relationship gets better every year.
What's it?
Next Wednesday, she's coming down, her brother, my daughter-in-law, and my new grandbaby coming down to spend a week with me.
What's that? Oh my God.
I mean, it's like, you talk about the promises, right? So, for people that are thinking about this, it's great. I've never, it's one thing to be sober, to not drink, but it's another thing to be sober, really sober. And there's a phrase, the dry drunk, and I was dry drunk for a while. I mean, I was all in, but the spiritual side of this, it took me a long time. And just as I was getting it, COVID hit, and I found myself locked in a condo. Everything was closed. No AA, no golf, no nothing. And I really was angry and got a little crazy and resentful. And we can't afford resentment as addicts. It's just the worst. It's the killer. And when COVID was over, somebody has told me, you need to get with the program. And if you have resentments for somebody, you need to start praying for them. Just do it and see what happens. Give it 6 months. And that's really when I finally got that last piece, which is the most important piece, which is the belief in a higher power that I'm not in control of any of this stuff. That my responsibility to the world and to myself is to do the next right thing and be a kind human being. But what I have to deal with is really out of my control. It's up to a higher power, however you define it. And when I got that, I got to tell you, it was the biggest relief I've ever had in my life. Because I was a control freak, and I was codependent, and I wanted to help people. But me helping people generally then made me resentful because they didn't give me the feedback that I desired, I was crazy. I would create resentments to justify my drinking. And I finally, it just hit me. It was a spiritual moment. I can't just find the exact moment when it happened. But it's when I finally got it that I don't have to be responsible for all this stuff.
It also connects to what somebody told you at Breakthrough about codependence.
Yeah.
Because the spiritual part really disconnects that dependence on the reaction of everybody else. Everybody else is just doing their thing. They're looking in the mirror. They're going along their way. And we don't really, whatever reaction is, it's not my responsibility. You know, letting it go. And the spiritual part, as you say, the spiritual mindset is an easy way to just not be responsible for every damn thing that happens in the world.
Yeah.
It's not our responsibility.
It's quite freeing.
For sure.
It,
However you get there, you know, you get there. We're not in a position where we know. I always say that everybody's right and everybody's wrong because nobody really knows what the right answer is. But we get the answer for yourself. That's what matters.
Yeah, part of the brilliance of the whole program of AA is that you can define your own higher power. It's up to you. You're not. There's no punishing aspect of religion associated with it, because that's what people ask you. You know, my friends, when I'd say, "Yeah, I'm going to rehab," when I'd tell them I'm in rehab, and they'd go, first thing they'd say is, "Thank God, we knew we had to stage an intervention, but we're terrified of trying to intervene with you, with your anger." And then the second thing they always say is, "How are you going to handle the God thing?" And I would say, "I don't know. I'm not there yet. You know, right now let's just get through rehab and try to get some stability, right?"
You just touched on one of the other principles that help, the one day at a time thing, which is we're here right now, however we are. This is what we're doing right now. We're at this table. We have these cameras, and we're here together, and we're enjoying each other's company. What's going to happen when we finish this up? I don't know.
Yeah, John used to always tell me, he goes, "There's no emergencies." He goes, "This isn't a sprint.
Yeah.
Just take a pause."
Do you know how many people have done interviews in Crosstech that talk about John? I got to get John sitting at that seat soon.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah. I call him and I say, "Oh, you're on this one. You're on this one. You're on this." He's touched a lot of people.
He has touched a lot of people,
including me,
including you, and yeah. There's a lot of great men and women in AA that have helped me, and the only thing they ever ask of me when I said, "God, thank you. What can I do for you?" and they go, "Just pass it on," you know. So I do. I got 5 sponsees right now. Some are new, some have 2 years. It's awesome. I always like mentoring guys in business. This is really much more special than that. To help a guy get and see him get this, and then see their lives change and see their family come back together and stuff. It's the best.
it is.
It's the best. It's absolutely the best thing I've ever done. And when it starts, when it's inconvenient or something, you just gotta go.
Well, you're a blessing.
This is what I was asked. This is what they asked me to do. What was so freely given to me. So it's great.
You're a blessing for me, and you're a blessing for all the people that we know together in our recovery community down here in South Florida. I want to ask you a question that we ask guests, which is it's a little bit off center, so to speak, but where you are right now, based on what you've learned and your arc of the life that you've described with us today, if you had to pick an age of young Alan, it could be 5, 10, 15, whatever age you want to pick, at what age would you, what advice would you give young Alan, if you were able to give young Alan some advice with everything that you know right now?
Wow. I think based on what I've learned in this program, I would tell young Alan at, let's call it 18, to find a set of principles that you hold dear, morally, ethically. Define what kind of person you want to be, and write it down and look at it once a week and try to be true to it. You know, I had a great upbringing, and I got caught up in making money. I worshiped money. I got caught up in drinking and drugging, and I definitely lost my moral compass along the way. And I think that's one reason it hit me so hard when my dad died, is that I wish I'd have been able to get sober and tell him that I had regained my moral compass because of what he taught me. So that would be my advice.
And the further away you get from 2016, I think that's when he passed.
Mm-hmm.
Further away you get, do you get any kind of comfort in kind of knowing that he's kind of aware of that right now? I don't know if that's overstating or getting too much into the, woo kind of thing, but I don't know. My mom passed in 2016. My dad passed in 2021. The further away I get from their passing, the more I feel that they're with me.
I do, and you know why? Because my stepmother lived another 6 years after my dad passed away, and she was in Savannah, and I have a golf club in Beaufort, South Carolina, so I was up there a lot, and I stopped by her house every time on the way there and on the way home, and we spent a lot of time together, and we used to live text Georgia football games, and I know that she has this connection with him that's unbelievable, so I know he knows through her. Right. Yeah, it's gotten, I still think about both of them, but yeah, it's okay. Every once in a while I have this feeling that, God, I wish I could spend time with him now that I would appreciate it more, but that's life, man.
Yeah, I mean,
again, out of my control.
We keep going, but a lot of the stuff that I learned from my dad, I mean, if he doesn't come up in conversation every day, he certainly does every few days, at least conversation in between my ears. And so I was at breakfast yesterday with a buddy of mine, and he was talking to me about somebody who was doing something that was absolutely insane, that was kind of out of character. My dad used to tell me, Cor, I think they're all crazy except you and me. And I'm not too sure about you.
I met your dad once.
Yeah, he's a funny guy, but like stuff just, he's here. He's not here, but he's absolutely here with me.
Yeah.
I appreciate your being with us. This was an amazing session, and it was amazing because you're here with me. Now Sergio's going to require us to stand up and hug it out because he's going to do something with the camera so that he doesn't take a picture of my butt.
I've got no problem with that, Corey. I actually was watching your session with Neil today to get ready for this, and there was quite a hug afterwards.
Yeah, but
we'll be a little more the same height.
Right.
Thank you, my brother. You're the best.
Good man. Thanks for doing this.
My pleasure.